So that, those are the things that are different. I did have, I would say this, that we have some really great talents in that time frame. It started out with Skinner and White, and Dean was, an outstanding distance runner, the first NAIA athlete to score in the top 10 in the national championship meet. His first, all 4 years he was in school, and he's in the NAIA Hall of Fame now. Clint Skinner was a great sprinter. He ran second indoors to Brooks Johnson in a meet in Chicago. Johnson set the world record. Interesting story. This is probably 20 years later. I'm at a Learn by Doing camp at the USOC Training Center in Colorado Springs. And it's a camp where coaches were invited to come in and go through all the different events. And they had supposedly the best coaches known to mankind teaching each one of these events. And went to the sprint event and had a Doane T-shirt or something. Some guy looks at me and the instructor. He said, Doane College. I said, yeah. He said, well, how's Clint Skinner? And I said, well, Clint's good. And he said, fastest college athlete we ever had in 1961. He said he gave me everything I wanted. He was the coach at Stanford at that time. And I just, these other coaches are looking at, what the heck's going on? And, but yeah, Clint was he probably the least appreciated of all of our outstanding athletes, because he was a heck of a sprinter from Elsie, Nebraska, a little school out west. And Pete was, Pete Sura was one of the greats in Doane, I think, in Doane athletic history. The way he got here is a long, involved story, and it would take a whole session. If we have time, sometime we'll get into that. But anyway, Pete came here from Germany and didn't speak any English or anything. And I remember his first semester, he had German 1, German 2, German 3, and track and field. That was his academic load. But very bright, super bright kid. And went on, of course, to have a great career in the banking business. He was on our board of trustees for a number of years. And is retired now, lives in Germany. But he brought the concept of international, what it was like to be an international runner into our program. And for a lot of our kids who were pretty provincial, and the coaches too. What did I know? I was, a Midwestern guy. I don't know anything about how the rest of the world works. But he brought the international concept of that was totally different from what we dealt with. I can still see him. First meet we ran at UNO and in Sap Fieldhouse. And they had a 10-lap of the mile dirt track in the field house, and Pete's running the 800, and they come wheeling off the last curve, and some kid from UNO is going to challenge him, and Pete gave him a pretty good shot, put the kid in the popcorn stand. There's popcorn flying, and this guy's feet are sticking out, and they disqualified him, and he couldn't understand why. And of course, we had the language barrier, and he said, "Well, that's just the way we run in Europe," and he was right. I found a lot later on in my coaching career when I had an opportunity to coach a team in international competition. But that's pretty much the way it was. It's a survival of the fittest. And he brought that concept in. They brought some training concepts in that we hadn't thought about. And it's just dealing with a guy at that, who had been at that level, was a learning experience for me at least. And being able and boy, did I make mistakes. When I think back on it, what we did for training was anything close to being adequate. But I didn't know any better, and it was a learning situation for me, big time. And I would say this for Coach Papik, when he dealt with his insistence, he let you make your own mistakes and learn from them, and he tried to help you to learn from them. It was he was a true mentor in that respect, that he didn't try and over administer you, but he wasn't afraid to tell you when he thought you made an error, and he did it in such a way that you didn't take offense, and that's what made him such a great coach. That's the way he dealt with the kids. It's the way he dealt with his assistants, and I tried to the best of my ability, tried to mimic that approach after I got to be head coach, because I thought his way of doing things was about as sound as anything. The one thing that I had never dealt with really was the recruiting aspect of it, and how important recruiting was. That I just had the idea that I guess that kids came to college and you dealt with whoever walked in the front door. And the idea of selling somebody on coming to your college was not anything that I had ever even thought about. And when I was at the University of Kansas City, I put a sign up and said, tryouts are today. And whoever showed up, they were on the team, and whoever didn't, wasn't. And the idea of going out and trying to find somebody for a specific place on your team, or a specific event, was foreign to me, and I had to learn that. And Al did a great job of taking me along on his recruiting trips early, and just let me watch him do his thing was a great advantage to me eventually. I finally figured out that if you wanted to have a winning team, you had to have some raw talent to work with. You didn't have the talent to work with, you weren't going to win. It didn't make any difference how good a coach you were. Up until that time, I thought, I could coach anybody. And I was some kind of miracle worker, I guess, that could create something out of nothing. And I learned pretty fast that if you were going to create something, you had to have some raw material to work with. And that recruiting was the way you did that. And Al had the idea, had a really broad idea of recruiting. He wasn't a real narrow thinker when it came to recruiting. He would recruit literally anybody if he thought it would really help the program, and particularly out of state. And you have to realize, of course, when you look at that point in history, about Doane, we were struggling. This college was in deep struggling. We were 320 students and barely keeping our head above water. And looking for new opportunities to and new areas to open up for potential students. And Al used that situation to our advantage athletically, where he's, said, okay, we had done a little bit of recruiting out of state. We had a contact in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, and we had some kids from the football players that had come from that area. But other than that, we were pretty much a in-state kind of recruiting program. And Al had the vision enough to see that we couldn't keep going that way, that we had to broaden our vision as to who we were going to try and serve, and what kind of students we were at, and where to find them. And it's a long, involved story, but the concept of out-of-state recruiting, whoa, was that something to sell to people to start with. And that period of time, that was in the 60s, when the civil rights activists, Vietnam War thing, that whole business was going on. It took a lot of foresight and a lot of courage for Al to bring a lot of African American kids on our campus. When I first came to Doane, this was a lily white school. We had one black kid on our entire student body. A fellow named Joe Moore was a football player and half-miler for us from Lincoln High. And he was the only black kid on this campus. And to bring, 10, 12, 15 minority kids into this part of the country to this kind of a college was quite a chore. And that took some courage on his part. And it took a lot of work and a lot of selling to make that happen and to make it function effectively. He was, and we were very careful about. He was really super careful about who he recruited and where they would fit in, whether or not they would fit in, and whether they were strong enough students to make it here. But yeah, he was a recruiting genius, really, and that's why he wound up at the University of Nebraska. They saw that he had that facility for student recruitment and recruiting the right students at the right time in the right place, and how to get them. And he was really I think he was a recruiting genius. I don't think any of it was really planned. Just the way Al Papik was. He was that kind of person, and he could his presence was such that you paid attention to what he was saying to you. He was great for me, obviously, for me to learn from him was a real opportunity. And that probably, his well, I don't know, everybody talks about his coaching ability and the 38 in a row and all that. And that was great. He was a good coach. And that was a heck of a run. That was a lot of fun to be part of. Even just as a trainer, to be part of that run was a lot of fun. But I think his biggest contribution to this college was in the kind of people that he influenced to come here. And that was, I think that was a testament to his ability and the kind of good person that he was, that he is today. He, and